Okay, so the original teaching, before I got the downloaded message of the Levites, the original teaching is still about the cloud. So, a little bit of a history lesson here in the beginning here. So take note that in the 1960s was when like cloud computing came about, which was the ARPANET, so ARPANET. So I found that funny because it kind of sounds like ERP net, and so then the sound, so one of the 5 body senses, and I added that in there because I was talking with someone today about the 5 senses in our body, yada yada. Anyway, so 1960 is our base number. So this is 2024. So that's 64 years. So 6 plus 4 equals 10. 10 in the tarot is completion of cycles. Over half a century of unconscious details in the information of our thoughts being uploaded to the cloud. So the data, we look into our devices, we upload, like all that stuff. But what I found funny was, I don't know why, like originally I wanted to say 1960 and 2024 has been 44 years of this happening, and we are in the 2000s, so 2 times 44 is 88, so 4 and 8 is 48, which, if you've ever read or listened to the book of Enoch, there's 48 gates in Enoch, and then there's the Watchers. And that was kind of something it was like a big thing other than the Kabbalion, of like what, like, pulled me into the spirit for me to be like, hey, you need to pay attention, So, the book of Enoch had a lot to do with, like the gates, the gatekeepers, the watchers. So, you can listen to that on YouTube. It's, and you can also read it in the transcript and whatever else. It's really good, though. So 88, the year 88 was also the year of the dragon. So, like, 2024. So there's this link to the Y2K. Like, so the Y2K was the shortcut to programming. So society's programmed. And so I'm going to let someone else sleuth the rest of that out, because I'll be stuck on that for a hot minute. So now we're going to get to the actual verse read here. And in verse 13, in the second book of Chronicles, it says, "It came even to pass, as the trumpeters and the singers were as one, to make one sound, the sound to be heard in praising and thanking the Lord. And when they lifted up their voice," throat chakra, "with the trumpets and cymbals and instruments of music, and praised the Lord, saying, for he is good, for his mercy endureth forever, that then the house was filled with a cloud, even the house of the Lord." So people bring cell phones in a church. You got your church apps. So these were the ancients already telling us there's a cloud. There will be a cloud. So verse 13 translates to me as the singers, the Levites, the music players, voices, the canary bird, instruments to praise the Lord. So I noticed that Lord, when you break that word down, and there was something having to do with the Hebrew faith and not saying Lord, I think. But the L would be the Levites, and then the ORD, so that's ordered and ordained, like ministers giving testimony. And so the Levites were assistants to the ministers, among many other things they did, but I'll let y'all look up what they did. So testimony, MONY, so test money. So our stories, they have value. Therefore, we own our stories. So the house, the kingdom, was filled with a cloud, the house of the Lord. So the question of this lesson is, what song are you singing and listening to? So the songs are like from the angels, from the heaven and earth, each with a subliminal message. So this is like where the earth angels, like myself and others, like we're all starting to come out and be like, hey, this is what we learned, but, you know, listen and at your own will. So, like I said before, there are many spells coming from our books of faith. This isn't just the Bible, this is all the across the way, because these were all written by the ancients. So, before the Salem witch trials. So, to me, it's mind-blowing that that we have like attending believers that gather energetically, ritualistically, like friction in a petri dish, right? Like in the places of worship, and I'm not knocking that. And but when you think about like homozygous and heterozygous and how that is in science and how that's used a lot in the study of growth in a petri dish. So then you got to think, like, where are those dishes stored usually? And so it's like usually it's stored in a controlled environment. So again, that's not me going against the church or any place of worship, because those are all safe places. But worship and your faith can be practiced even in the home. So I'm just stating a fact to a war game the German economists started a long time ago with religious followers, and I'll let y'all do your own research on that. So I always found it odd that someone on the timeline created a stigma about religion and science, and how they are not the same. And I'm not sorry to say this, but who and how was the illusion created for that stigma to come about? Like, that believers were able to know God created the environment via magical miracles, but at the same time, believers were able to make the disconnect with environmental science. And, like, really, really think about that. So here's another one. As far as, like, I know, like, as far as I know this far, there are 64 fields of science. And I know that for a fact. And so if you want to relate that back to the 64 years since the year 2000, the Y2K thing and all that. So you want to, in cycles, and like, I didn't even try to do this, like, this is exactly how it came down. So I thought that was so weird. But it's a cycle. So there's a 64th year science. So, like, right now, quantum computing is a big thing right now. And then in the last couple years, I've been trying to take lead, taking lead in the field of quantum economics, because it's more of like the soul's journey and spiritual nature and things of that sort, and, like, you know, getting rid of the old shackles of the past. And so that's what the quantum economics is. And so it's more like a free space, like, we're literally, like, independence and sovereignty and all that is how that is supposed to go down. So the 64 fields of science, you know, I thought that was really interesting, how that all kind of ties in, and the sleuthing of the numbers and the timeline. So I know for a fact that our books of faith cover at least one field originally, which was anthropology. So anthropology is the study of humanity, and there's, like, subgroups to this. And this is kind of something that I started with in the beginning of my journey. And I was, like, really wanting to go to, you know, school to be an anthropologist, but then I started realizing, you know, I read the Bible, I read other books from ancient times, and for a decent amount of my life, I was studying humanity from ancient times, because that is what the Bible is. It's a study of humanity. It's the guidebook. Watching what they do. So, like, by default, we're all anthropologists when you really think about it. Yet the majority of us don't have that degree, that piece of paper. So if you take note to the phrase Sunday school, all I'm saying is someone owes us some piece of paper. Says went to school for anthropology. So it's like, what else so you have to, like, ask, like, what else are we qualified for, that these systems, not necessarily people, but people make the systems, but we've given systems control over our lives. And so, like, everyone's like, oh my gosh, AI. We built that system collectively, whether we knew it or not. We built those systems. So just like we built them, we can take them down. But then there's that codependency that religion has programmed us to think, and that old belief systems have programmed us to think. I didn't really ever vibe with a lot of that. I mean, I was obedient to my parents, but in like my elders and all that, but then there came a point where I was like, they're following a system that just didn't work for me. Like, there were times I'd be at work, not even a hard job, and it was just, I just couldn't get with their program. And it was like that those systems were built to make people that are different feel like they don't belong. And in ways, yeah, a lot of us are here in this flesh suit with our soul trying to give the messages. Little earth angels running around here trying to really like do something productive with our energy. And I was doing it before I even knew how energy even worked. All I knew that I needed to do and say what I needed to say in the moments that I was in. And like, that's like the baseline of what my knowledge was. And then I, had an anointing in my living room. Like, it was just like, I wasn't unfamiliar with these things happening, but it was really, it was the big one, right? So I'm like reading this stuff in the beginning, and I'm like, we're already kind of like anthropologists, so it's like funny, like 2 years later, I'm talking about it again, but it's not just for me, it's like, it's the collective. Like, there's so many things that we do in the spirit that our souls are tied to. And I'm going to get to that here in a bit too. But we have to pay attention because it's our data. And because our soul operates on frequency, electromagnetic fields, vibrations, sounds, all the senses, the 5 and the ones that where our gifts and all of our supernatural abilities are at. You have to pay attention to like what you're doing. Like, you got to take a Mercury retrograde of your life and swipe left or right and decide like what you really want going into as we're approaching more of the quantum computing. Because like I said before, like, you ain't getting anyone doing stuff, like, they ain't gonna be able to hide that. Like, everything's coming to light. Like, it's not just something said, like, it's something being proven. Like, these things are coming out, and those of us giving the messages, like, we're protected, and so if you're someone out there listening to my stuff and you have a side note, please put your message out there, tag me in it, because I also want to hear what you have to say, because this is what we're supposed to be doing, but we all have our different way of doing it. So, and a lot of it are people that we were following religious beliefs, which there's nothing wrong with religion, but there's a point where you ride the bicycle of life, and you have to evolve off your training wheels. And I don't know about some of y'all, but I got mad that training wheels were on my bike. I almost felt insulted that my parents made me put them on there, and I got ticked off and I threw my bike, and I was so upset about it, I remember. But it was like that moment in my life, because my emotions were involved, had significance to how I was as a believer in God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit and all the other spiritual forces that surround us. Like, a lot of them are angels that hardly anyone ever taps into. Like I said before, there's like 40 different ones. There's so much more that's for you than there are people against you, if that makes any sense. I mean, if you're the type of person that's not good at ignoring what people have to say about you, because I mean, there are people that said some things about me, and I was like, we shall see. you know, or you shall see, whatever, and God sees all, like, I don't really didn't care, like, but that's just me, my personality, that's just how I am, I've always been that way, like, it just, like, I'm just, side blinders, go, but yeah, so, you have to think about the systems, and the systems we have built, and knowing exactly what systems you were contributing to, because when you look at your life and you look at, like, you know, you go through your day, and then you something's mentioned, and you're like, huh, that's funny, because I had that thought, like, that's kind of how it starts, and so then you start wondering, but then sometimes you're just like, oh, I had that thought, but, like, when I was younger, like, as a kid, like, these things would happen, like, one summer, I was like, oh my gosh, like, there's a cup, like, wouldn't it be cool if the cup had measurements on it, so you can make, like, they call it the suicide drinks, where you put the Slurpee and the soda, and, like, there's, like, if there's, like, an ingredient book, and then sure as crap, like, 2 summers later, there's a cup at this gas station, and there's a recipe book, and a doggone cup with, you know, the hash marks of, like, where to put whatever levels, but I didn't think of it then, but it's like, it's stuck with me, because I was like, I remember feeling some type of way about it, so because I was telling my family members, because they're, you know, I wasn't old enough to drive yet, so I was like, I helped create that, so then you got to think about these systems, like, what are you helping create with your thoughts, because your thoughts create energy. People can catch your thoughts. Like they say, a penny for your thoughts. Well, I mean, you really should get paid more for that. And I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere down the line, Bitcoin starts accumulating currency for merit for your good thoughts. Like, I would not be surprised one bit if that is already in the works. But anyways, we create these systems, and then the system, once it's established, you know, it tells us, like, what we're not worthy of. And so, like, that's not okay. And so then the ERP, I'm probably going to mess this one up, but it's like the Enterprise Resource Planning, I believe. So that is something that is supposed to go into these systems, but if you don't have good project managers, or, you know, everyone's learning, it's like this constant cycle of just, you know, like, they only get so many, I think there's like 8 steps or something like that, but you only get so far, and then it just, and then it just doesn't go back to it, and then everyone's not motivated. So there's, like, the leadership, there's, like, all of these things, and so the ERP systems aren't really helping the people, and the people that built the systems, and then those people leave, retire, whatever happens, and the system's still there, and then nobody knows what to do, and then that's where the being creative comes into play, and why it's so important to exercise your creativity, you know, in a healthy way. Don't let it consume you. Goodness forbid you get stuck in a Dollar Tree and well, if you know, you know. But as believers, we need to wake up. We need to wake up from the systems that were built before, because they're old systems of belief. That's not just religion, that's working, that's industrial, that's technology. I mean, it's like all the things. And then, like, one of my first videos talks about the domains. So I think I mentioned there should be a 9th domain, which is the data domain, which is us taking control of our data. So when you think of systems, like, a lot of them are going to go mainly into just domains, and then there'll be, like, subgroups from there, is what I've gotten in my spiritual downloads. Because just having systems isn't just cutting it anymore, because no one ever unscrews whatever there was. It's just there, and like we don't grow as a people. And then when we do, then it's like hard growth times. It's like it doesn't have to be that hard. It really doesn't. So the times have come to where we bear our own cross. So this is what going through the initiation of the flame has taught me. And I got upset because through that process, I discovered that I had always bared my own cross, meaning I always owned my moments. If I did something, I had integrity, and I was like, I messed up. I did this as a kid. This was very much ingrained in me. That, and I always knew God was watching, so it was like, I can't, like, if I did something wrong, like, that one I was a horrible liar, still a horrible liar, like, just, my parents knew, even other people knew, like, they knew I couldn't lie to save my life. And I was always in trouble just because I couldn't lie. And I was like, I might as well just tell the truth. So, whatever. But, I mean, it was just easier. It's just easier because it's like, I get, being a super empath, like, I get super guilty conscious about those things. And, I don't need more anxiety. I don't need that. Not like I really have it, but just having ADHD. Like, having a guilty conscience on top of that does not help. So I was like, just tell the doggone truth, you know? So, but I would get really, like, upset, like, during my process, because, like, I'd always bared my own cross. Like, I just spearhead the situation, and it'd make people uncomfortable, but I was like, I wasn't there to make people comfortable. I was there to do my soul's mission, what I was there to do. And I just didn't have to say that, but some people that knew, they knew. When you know, you know. Like attracts like, kind recognizes kind. So, like, because of who and what I am as an authority figure in the spirit, so, yes, God is great, good, gracious, and merciful. But God is not ignorant. Therefore, as God's people and divine children made in God's image, we also will not be ignorant. So, yes, God wants us to lay down our burdens, give them to God, but what I haven't heard in the church and from a lot of other believers is how to build our confidence in ourselves. And so the confidence part is just something that's come out, like that book by Joyce Meyer, the devotional, but that is something that I didn't really remember being taught, because everything was always like, give it to God, give it to God, give it to God. And it's like, yes, but you're also made in God's image, so you're also just as great. You know, like you are above a lot of situations, but you're not above anyone. You're just above situations, just like myself. I'm not above anyone, but I'm above situations, and so I do hold authority, and I will own my authority because I've bared my own cross. I've even bared the cross of others. It just happened because, and then I just let them know later, like, this is what happened, and I learned it, but now I'm going to teach you what I learned since you weren't able to have that. And that's just something that happens to some of us, especially if you're an empath. You just absorb these things, and it sucks, but at the end of the day, because you hold so much more authority than the world leads you to believe. And so this is why a lot of us are coming out with all these, profound things from our books of faith and other things. Like, I gather things from everything. So, because God created it all in some way or form. There's good and there's bad, but you have to find the message and everything, and that is a gift that I have had, and sometimes is very overbearing sometimes and overwhelming to me, but overall I'm grateful for it, because most people I know and that I've known, they don't talk about these things, and but most people that talk about these things with, they don't seem to get uncomfortable about it. Like there's just like a curiosity, which is a good thing. So that lets me, like, hey, like what I'm saying is resonating. That there's a soul resonance, something happening. So these are good things. So like I encourage any of you out there that are, that resonate with anything I'm saying, that own your story, and but protect it. But own your story. Even though we're protected, just you still have the responsibility to somewhat protect yourself. And I was kind of a little bad about that in the beginning, but I also didn't know what route I was really going down at the time. I just knew that I was going, and so there's a lot of weird things that happened, but God's not ignorant, therefore we are no longer going to be ignorant. And I'm not even going to reference the story of the sheep. So, like I said, I haven't really heard a lot of the church and a lot of people of believers talk about building confidence in ourselves. And that's something that I take very personal and a big responsibility of, to put out these messages as well, because leadership and good leaders, and being a leader in your home and having the equality in your home, and your partner's your equal, like that submissive stuff, it's like Dunsky. Like we ain't doing that anymore. Like it is so, like, I don't know, like I was really big about chivalry, and like that's great, and it was honorable, and today it's almost like I'm kind of like 50-50 about it. But like, if like my partner was to come up to me, get on one knee and propose, like I said this to someone in a Facebook message somewhere the other day, because they posted women proposing to men, and I was like, I appreciate the symbolism in them breaking that barrier, but at the same time, I'm the type of person where I would take my partner by the hand and be like, no. Like, you can stand up in your power and you can ask me, like, will you marry me? Like that, like, just got the chills saying that. But it's like, that's how partnership should be. And whether it's romantic or platonic, like, you're equals because you're both contributing to something. Like, ain't no one right or the other. There are better ways, but and I don't like to use the word wrong, because I'm just trying to phase out a lot of those kinds of words. I wish they just didn't exist anymore, so we just forget about them and we'd create a different dialogue, and it's happening, but slowly but surely. But either way, I'm grateful. So it's just having that confident leader, because that is what God is to us. God is a confident leader. And if you don't believe in God, either way, there's still a greatness, a confident leader in you, because leaders are what create and have created this, well, it's kind of like a mess that we live in, but in everyone's lineage and in everyone's blood, You know, the power in the blood. In your DNA, in your code, down your line, there was at least one leader. Whether they were Native American, a colonist, or from another country, what have it. There's a leader already in your ancestral DNA. So, you owe it to yourself to also know how to build your confidence. But, like, I wish more churches and more speakers and, like, priests, ministers, youth leaders, Sunday school teachers, and whatever the other faiths are, and how rabbis and like all that. I wish they would teach more about the confidence. And if yours does, that's great. That's awesome. But the confidence part is so we don't repeat a pattern of codependency. And so, like, you look at the patterns and look at society, and it's like, what, like, that has led to, like, what? Like, divorces, abusive relationships, ties to negative energy, among many, many other actions that create the reactions, which creates more energy. So, you know, it's just like this constant cycle. And, you know, had people learn to not just throw everything at God and start taking responsibility, bearing their own cross, codependency probably wouldn't be as bad as it has been. Like, and breaking those cycles are hard, and that goes into some other things having to do with it. It's just, there's so much codependency, and then it's like in the systems that are there to help you, but then it's like your soul's being tied to their data collection system, and you don't consciously realize how much of that is pulling on your soul energetically, because it's data going to a computer that's on the electromagnetic field, your soul on electromagnetic field. So it pays you to know thyself and your soul and your spirit. Like, all this stuff ties in together, but I had never heard anyone say it the way that I say it. And more people are going to start saying it. And most people say it's spiritual, like the soul and all that. But I incorporate the religious part of it and the economic part of it, which are, you know, two extras to whatever it is. So I'm doing it better by trying to create a different narrative. And I'm not saying my way is the right way. I'm just saying it's a better way. But you have your own free will. I'm just the messenger in this, right? So, so the actions that create the reactions. So, we are made in God's great image, like I said. Therefore, we all have God's greatness within us, right? Via the power in our blood, our DNA, the genetic makeup of our existence, right? So, I say all that to shine the light on verse 14. So, in this verse, where and when, okay, so a prophetic piece of information was given during ancient times.